Alright, so we are using the Nightfall long gun today, along with Leaking Gemstone. The objective is to more or less keep the mod active at all times. Now, for a lot of just walking through a dungeon, not super feasible to do that because you need to make sure that you're actually hitting guys a lot, because you do suffer a pretty big reduction in mod power generation while Leaking Gemstone is active, or while the mod is active. It only lets 20% of your generation to go through. So it's hard to do it when there's a lot of empty space in between doing things. Mostly it's going to be for when we're fighting bosses. That's when you're really going to see the whole thing actually pay off. But even if you don't fully charge your mod while it's active, you're still going to see some pretty big benefits with next to no downtime, especially because we have so much mod power generation that, congratulations, it'll take all of 2 shots to really make it work and get it up and working, you know? So overall, very fun. And the Nightfall gun is also very fun as well. It's not one I typically use because for a while back when the game was first out, I was seeing it a lot, and so I just said, maybe not for me. A lot of other people are using it. I'll do something else. But it is a blast to use. Now, I've decided to mix it in with Gift of the Unbound. It's a little bit of a flavor kind of thing because the Nightweaver and Nimue were sisters, so it felt kind of fitting for us to use the Gift of the Unbound along with the Nightfall, and the setup works. Even if we're not necessarily super optimized in ways that I would normally do to make Leaking Gemstone work for us, it's working with this. And part of it too is because of the Burden of the Follower gives us a 30% mod power increase, and normally you suffer from a decrease in your fire rate, but with Gift of the Unbound, that's no longer a problem, which is really big because that Burden of the Follower can really add a lot of mod power generation. I mean, at 30%, but you don't, it's, you know, obviously it's hidden because there's the downside of fire rate, but that fire rate decrease really does actually mess up your mod power generation because you're shooting so slow now. And so I was finding with some of my light casual testing that when I was using Gift of the Unbound, that decrease in fire rate wasn't making the Burden of the Follower any better than me just using the Spirit Stone for another 10% mod power generation. But since we don't have that downside, you know, obviously that whole thing is a moot point. It's just some food for thought for you. But the overall setup is working. We do have a lot of other things mixed in there with Spirit Trait, Insight, a lot of just overall mod power generations. Some of our fragments are kind of built around it as well to help us out as well. You might be wondering too, why don't I use the linear sensor? Because anytime I think about doing the Leaking Gemstone and trying to have as little downtime as possible for my mods, there's a couple things you can build for. The first one is obviously just mod power generation. You're going to want mod power generation because the Leaking Gemstone is only going to allow 20% of it to go through. So you need to have a lot of it to compensate for that downside. Now, the next thing I like to go for would be mod duration, because if your mod is lasting longer, that's more time for you to actually charge it up before it runs out, which is really helpful. So using something like the linear sensor, giving you a 50% increase to that duration, and then mix in chakra and a fragment and maybe Zoe's ring, you can have almost 30 seconds of mod duration, which oftentimes is more than enough for you to fully charge it, especially in a boss fight when you are constantly dealing damage to the enemy and whatnot. But I'm not doing that here because more often than not, whenever I use Leaking Gemstone, I'm a sucker for Bullet Weaver. And Bullet Weaver is going to give us a fire rate increase when we use our mod. It lasts for 15 seconds. Now, if my mod lasts for too long, say it lasts for 25 seconds, that is 10 seconds where I'm no longer getting a fire rate increase from Bullet Weaver. So instead, I like for my mods, whenever I'm using Bullet Weaver, to last close to that 15 seconds so I can have as much of that uptime on the fire rate increase and not basically lose out on the whole benefit of it. I guess since I'm leveling this up, we will take a look at everything. So here it is right now, Hunter Gunslinger, just kind of a hug setup. I've just got Hunter's Marcus, just ease of use, plus Bullet Storm, and if we like time it up perfectly, we can use Bullet Storm on top of the Dreadwalker mod, so then It's really high fire rate, infinite ammo. We can pump out a lot of damage, especially when you mix in the fire rate from Bullet Weaver as well. Now, for the rings and everything, we've got the Gift of the Unbound. As I mentioned, we're going to get a nice bit of movement speed from it because we have 3 Burden Rings. Burden of the Follower, as I mentioned as well, at 30% more mod power. Leaking Gemstone, of course, that's 20% of the mod power to generate while it's active. Burden of the Gambler, just a big damage boost as well, as with a critical chance and critical damage increase. And then the Burden of the Destroyer, increasing all our damage by 15%. Depending on what you have, you can swap some things around, maybe kind of fiddle around with things, whatever you want to do, right? And then, of course, we already talked about it. Nightfall's got Bullet Weaver in there, increase that fire rate by 20% when we activate the mod, and we just get 15% more mod power generation, which is really helpful to keep using the mod. The other two, not super important. So, as I mentioned, talking about things I like to build for, the 2 things being mod power generation as well as mod duration. Since I didn't do mod duration, a third thing you can do is have your handgun use a mod that has a long duration. So something like Familiar. Familiar, we can just activate it, and it's just going to run around and do stuff for us, which is really helpful. Now, if you don't want to use Familiar or you don't have it, you could run the Night Guard. You could use Nebula, even though Nebula's duration has been cut really low. You could probably do some Root Lash things, just something passive that you can activate and then go back to the Nightfall and have it just sort of be adding in a little bit of mod power for you. Now, another option as well is your archetypes. You could throw on the Archon. Archon can get you a good amount of mod power stuff going on with his prime perk giving you mod per second, and then casting the mod is going to double that value for 10 seconds. So that can really smooth out your ability to keep the thing active. In addition, it reduces mod power requirements. It does everything mod thing. The main reason I don't like to use it is I can charge up my mod without using it. I don't necessarily need it. But also, a lot of the benefits I feel like it adds, right? Amplify, increase mod damage by 15%, mod crit chance. Our mod isn't actually doing any damage. So that's why I wanted to go Hunter Gunslingers, just focus in on the actual gun damage, because that's what we're doing. As for traits, like I said, you're going to want mod stuff. So mod Spirit's maxed out for an extra 20%. I did actually max out Chakra as well. That's increasing our mod duration by 30%. That plus a Fragment gives us an extra 45%, I think it was. So that puts us at 14.5 seconds on our Dreadwalk mod. So that's pretty important for what we're doing right now. After that, I do need Insight, automatically generating mod power per second. That really helps to smooth it out, especially in between fights if I'm using the mod out in the world when I'm just clearing out a dungeon or something. And then we're already doing a lot of lifesteal with it, so I had a choice here. I leaned extra hard into the lifesteal portion of it, so I maxed out Siphoner, I maxed out Leech, but it might have been better for me to actually put points into Regrowth so that I had a little bit of life regen in between fights. That way I'm topping off and I'm not starting off the fight a little hurt. But in the middle of a boss fight, this works out pretty well because we're going to be constantly shooting. And the downside of Dreadwalker is you're not able to use your other weapon skills or items, so you have to just shoot to recover health. So that is kind of a downside to consider. After that, kind of whatever you want. The footwork is kind of nice. I think I only have a few points in it, or did I max it out? Oh, I actually don't have any points in footwork. I swapped some things around. Oh, I think it's because I put points in Strongback to have my medium weight. But you could consider doing some footwork or even some more swiftness. We're already getting a nice little bonus of movement speed from the Gift of the Unbound, so you could lean into it a little bit harder. You could do some other things like that. Now for fragments, I've got a health bonus. Just I like to have extra health. It's just helpful. Mod duration, this is getting us close to that 15 seconds, putting us at 14.5 with the Dreadwalker. And then mod power generation by 10% also just kind of helps to smooth out the whole thing. Another idea you could possibly go with is going with a fire rate increase, because the faster you're shooting, that means the more often you're hitting the guy, which is more mod power generated. So that is an idea you could kind of go with, right? Now I do have my Prism in here, which is adding a lot of ranged bonuses as well. So obviously it's just making my overall gunplay way better. So some of the numbers and how it's performing is not necessarily true to, say, an empty baseline setup, but I've been messing with this kind of general thing for a while. It'll work without having a big full prism thing like this. Obviously it's just not going to work quite as well, right? Obviously it's just bonuses, it's just bonus stuff. Let's go fight this bug guy, see how this goes. Not going to be a super great matchup for us right now, because hitting the little guy is going to be kind of obnoxious, but hey, we can probably make it work. The bird will probably do a good amount of work for us as well. And then as long as we can kind of keep hitting him, we can keep charging up the mod. That's going to be the key thing in a boss fight, making sure that you're continuing to hit the guy. And look at that. Mod is already charged up, ready to go. That's pretty annoying, though. And I was kind of wondering how his whole grab thing would interact with us being this whole Wraith form. Because that is something, it's really subtle at times how well that mod makes us like hard to hit. Because what does it say? Becomes harder, significantly harder to hit while moving. It's weird. Like, what does that mean? Well, there's been times where I'm fighting guys and they are just completely missing. They're shooting off in different directions. It looked like what happened there was a Primogenitor. He just tried to grab us and then just fell off. So, you know, it's a little weird. See, he just lunged at us and missed us. And so as long as we keep moving, is he going to fall off? Didn't fall off that time. And see, he missed, and we weren't even doing anything. I think as long as you just kind of keep moving, you'll be okay. Now, notice how we didn't have the mod active right away there, but we have so much mod power generation. All it took was a couple shots, and it was already ready to go. So, realistically speaking, we're not really experiencing any downtime on the mod, which is really nice. I enjoy that quite a bit. And then, bam, already ready to go. And we'll just kind of keep unloading like this. Overall, being a pretty smooth, easy fight. We'll get ourselves up to Sha'Hala maybe next after this one, so you can see how it does against the actual world boss. But, spoiler, it's going to do just fine. And Bird is also just so good. It just helps round out the build so nice, so well. Just a little bit of extra damage, the extra mod power generation. That dude is still alive? Huh, weird. Now, something to sort of think about, I suppose, whenever you're going to build around this and you're looking at different mod rings and whatnot to use for the loadout, with some of my testing, right, I looked at the Spirit Stone. Obviously, that is something that'll give you 10% mod power generation. But then there's another one, the Cataloger's Jewel. That one will give you, wait, ooh, I forgot how much it does, because they changed it at one point. 10 to 15 mod power per second. Now, with some of my light casual dad testing, between the two of them, for the most part, they were fairly comparable. The difference really, that's really annoying. The difference was really noticeable on whether or not I was actually hitting guys. If you were consistently hitting enemies and you were able to just keep your, beat on the boss, then Spirit Stone did pretty okay. It did pretty solid. And some of the weapons, it did vary a little bit. But if there's spaces in between you actually getting the boss, then Cataloger's Jewel would often do a little bit better, because obviously if you're not shooting the boss, you're not generating mod power. Cataloger's Jewel will keep doing that mod power. And it also sort of varied depending on the weapon. On some of the bigger weapons, or heavier hitting, slow ones, single shot things like crossbow or whatever, it did seem as though the Spirit Stone was actually doing better than the Cataloger's Jewel. But again, I feel like some of the numbers are a little weird. It was kind of casual. So it might be worth like kind of checking in the firing range between the two of them to see which one feels better for you. I do generally feel like the Cataloger's Jewel has a little more ease of use because you don't have to hit the enemy for it. But with some of the weapons, it did seem as though Spirit Stone would end up working out better. At least a little bit. At the end of the day, the two were so close for the most part. There was very little true difference. You know what it always makes me think of? So I used to do a bit of swimming, and I remember I was doing this swim test with another guy, and he had his Speedo and everything on, and I'm not a bad swimmer, pretty decent, but I had not been practicing for a while, and so my time, not super amazing for a 250 meter or 200 meter or 250 yard, whatever it was, right? And he was like, hey, why are you just wearing like swim trunks? That saves you time to use the other one. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you're right, it will save me time. It'll save me all of maybe 5 seconds on my nearly 10-minute swim. Ooh. I'm not doing Olympic level swimming. I don't care if I shave a couple seconds here and there, right? It doesn't ultimately, at the end of the day, for me, practically speaking, it doesn't do that much. Yes, it does do something. All the little pieces do add up, right? They all do. But still, you get what I'm saying, right? All right, Sha'Hala time. Let's go and win the video game. Switch, activate this. Boom. We're gonna do Spectral one because I feel like I end up doing the alternate one in the boss rush all the time. Oh, it's been a while since I've done this version though. Forgot that there are constant lasers active. We should have zero problems constantly activating the mod. However, based on the ghost, yeah, see, that's so annoying. We're gonna die because I can't shoot those stupid projectiles. That's really annoying. And because I don't have regen, because I don't have any kind of regen and my relic doesn't actively heal, anytime my health drops low, if I can't shoot anything, I'm in trouble. Okay, we're gonna swap it a little bit. So that's, I guess that's a downside of this, is the finger bullets don't destroy the random projectiles. That's not fair. That doesn't feel right. All right, round 2, let's make it do better this time. I mean, as you can see, when we're actively hitting the dude, we're doing good damage. And as long as we keep moving, because we're harder to hit, it seems like the boss actually has a harder time trying to track us. Like, those lightning lasers did not seem to go where they should have. And now we're pretty smooth because, obviously, we just have to dodge things. We don't have to shoot projectiles. Bad thing is going to be that the mod is not ready to go, unfortunately, because guess what? We weren't shooting anything. But it does charge up fairly fast, though that is a big loss of DPS. We could have been doing a lot of damage there if the mod had actually been charged up. And that's okay. We're still going to win. Except when we have to deal with these, and I can't swap guns because I'm in the Dreadwalker form. Oh, but see, look how they didn't go to us at all. See, there's the power of its bad targeting, is it just goes to the wrong place, which is really handy. Way early on that second one, but I guess we were okay. Oh, see, and now the mod's not going to be charged up again. Where are they shooting? Completely off. Yeah, see, look at that. They're just completely missing us. All right, here we go. Now, if mod is active, now we get some good damage. Okay, shoot the hand, so we'll keep doing damage and charging it up. I tried to get the familiar active before we started doing that. Didn't quite work out, unfortunately. But once this one ends, then we will activate Bird, switch it back over. It's ready to go. It's not really targeting us, so we'll be okay if we're just constantly moving, as long as we don't walk off the map. Again, bad timing on mod activation and him dipping down. Ow. Oh, actually, it's almost charged up, so we will be able to do the full damage now. There we go. That's pretty good. That's very good. That's the timing we needed. It's a fun setup. Nightfall is really good. Using it with Leaking Gemstone, also fantastic. You know, it's just fun because this doesn't actively increase its damage, but having that increased fire rate and just unlimited ammo just allows you to deal so much damage. It's really solid. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for joining me, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Give it a go. Do similar things. Leaking Gemstone, always a blast to use. So, yeah, till the next one. Take care.